Good morning and welcome to the 7th virtual ARAP National Dialogue of the NCCE, the National Commission for Civic Education. After over a decade of pursuing and pressure on the government to pass the RTI Act or bill into law, the government eventually did so. It is now heading to almost 2 years since the act was passed into law. What has been the effect of the passage so far? The NCCE, in its public engagements with citizens, had citizens talking about the need for the RTI as part of the processes to shine the light and rid the country of corruption. Where are we with the RTI and what is the way forward? Welcome to the 7th virtual ARAP National Dialogue of the National Commission for Civic Education. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyanini. You're welcome back. This is the 7th National Dialogue by the NCCE. The 7th Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, ARAP, National Dialogue. And today we are discussing the theme, Right to Information. The National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, embarked on a research on public perception of the state of corruption, public accountability and environmental governance in Ghana. The study was undertaken in collaboration with the International and Ibero-American Foundation for Administration and Public Policies, and with support from the European Union. The research was one of the foremost actions undertaken by the NCCE as part of its implementation of the Accountability, Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, ARAP. The research findings provided an informed basis for the design of civic education strategies and messages on anti-corruption, rule of law and accountability, and environmental governance. In today's dialogue, the 7th in the series, we focus on right to information as a tool to fight against corruption. My panelists are Ben Abdallah Banda, who is chairperson of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. He is to my left. And Mrs. Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Executive Director, the Ghana Integrity Initiative. And joining us on Zoom will be Mrs. Wilhelmina Mensah, Director, Africa Office, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. But for this moment, let's take a welcome note from the chairperson of the NCCE, Ms. Josephine Nkrumah.
The National Commission for Civic Education, the 7th dialogue series on anti-corruption, rule of law, public accountability program, ARAP. This morning's program seeks to highlight the Right to Information Act 2019, Act 989. After almost 2 decades of advocacy for the passage of the Right to Information Bill, pursuant to the enshrined provision in our Constitution that states, all persons shall have the right to information subject to such qualifications and laws as are necessary in a democratic society. The bill was successfully passed in 2019. The free flow of information is a necessity for democracy to grow and thrive, with the participation of citizens to not only demand information in order to assess accountability, but also to fight corruption. Indeed, an informed citizenry facilitates a functioning democracy. Any action that impedes the right of citizens to seek or demand information results in preventing effective participation in debates and decision-making processes from an informed position. As a key tool for democracy, the exercise of this right to information strengthens citizens' sovereignty as enshrined in Article 1 of our 1992 Constitution, promotes transparency and accountability, and supports good governance. Today's dialogue sets the stage for much needed education of both public institutions and officials and the general public on their respective obligations and rights under the RTI Act. It highlights the importance of proper implementation of access to information, and equally important, it amplifies the role of citizens to exercise their rights to request for information as a crucial exercise in order to combat bad governance and systemic malpractices in institutions, including the culture of concealing or impeding access to information. Section 3 of the RTI Act places on public institutions the responsibility of providing up-to-date information which is both accurate and authentic. The RTI Act as a tool for promoting transparency is critical in these times when, as a country, we know that we lose annually almost $3 billion United States dollars to corruption, a menace that ravages the benefits of democracy and hinders socioeconomic development. Corruption obstructs interventions and makes nonsense of policies and programs to alleviate poverty, reduce unemployment, access basic medical care, quality education, access to water and electricity, and good environmental practice. These affect the core of our existence, and therefore the RTI Act must be a tool that every civic-minded citizen must employ in seeking our collective well-being as a nation. The NCCE will use today's dialogue as a launchpad to undertake mass education for both public institutions and the citizenry to complement the work of the RTI Secretariat and the role of the RTI Commission. Prior to today's dialogue, 6 dialogues have been held on anti-corruption, public accountability, environmental governance, and whistleblowing. Since the launch of our research report entitled Public Perception of the State of Corruption, Public Accountability, and Environmental Governance in Ghana, it was evident that difficulty in accessing information from public institutions adds to the public perception of a lack of transparency and accountability of public officials. The principle of probity and accountability is our collective commitment as postulated in the preamble to our Constitution. Our right to information must be exercised fearlessly with a cardinal objective of reducing corruption. As the eminent panelists examine the key provisions of the law, its operationalization, the processes for access to information under the law, and limitations thereunder, particularly to women and other vulnerable groups, whether or not MMDAs fulfill the obligation to publish annual expenditure accounts for their constituents, the role of access to information in whistleblowing, and finally, limitations to the Act itself with proposals for strengthening the law, I urge all Ghanaians and our audience to listen and be educated on a law that affects us all. I take this opportunity to thank the European Union, the Ibero-American Foundation for Administration and Public Policies, the Multimedia Group, the seasoned panelists, and staff of the Commission for making this dialogue possible. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Ms. Josephine Nkrumah, with the opening notes to the 7th Virtual ARAP National Dialogue by the NCCE, focusing on the right to information as a tool to the fight against corruption in Ghana. Without much ado, I'd like to welcome all of you joining us on radio as well, all over the country. Let's now head to the head of the EU delegation to Ghana and representative of the ARAP coordinating unit. Okay, so I understand that we should be joined by Peter Smith van Gelder, but he is presently not ready. We will get back into the studio, commence our deliberations, and as and when he's ready, we will have him also give us a statement. Now, as you may know, like I announced earlier, we did a first draft of the RTI bill in 1999. And it took a lot of pressure from the RTI coalition, the RTI campaign groups, and citizens to have the state eventually, in March 2019, pass the RTI bill into law, except that the implementation was deferred to January 2020. We are in August 2020. People still have to go to court to seek information, as recently done by an MP as regards the Electoral Commission. But what are the aspects of this law and how are they useful to your right to information? That's what we will engage our guests right away to do so. Now, I understand that Peter Smith van Gelder is joining us via Zoom to give us his remarks. Thank you very much for making the time to join us. Let's hear you, sir.
Hello, how are you? I'm happy to join you. I hope everybody can hear me. It's very important for me to be here, even though it's virtual, but still I join like this. For the EU, it has been a very important project. The European Union, the institution I represent, has a long time been privileged to work with the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, and I truly believe they have been instrumental in educating the public and assisting in peaceful and credible presidential and parliamentarian elections in the recent past in 2012 and in 2016. We also support, as the European Union since 2017, the Accountability, Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, better known as ARAP, to make institutions here in Ghana even more effective, robust and stronger. Why? Why do we do this? Because we really believe an educated and informed public and population are very important, essential requirements for democracy, which we see here, the true democracy here in Ghana. Ordinary citizens can use the opportunities provided to access information and to deepen transparent and accountable governance. And we are really convinced a well-informed citizenry is an asset to democratic society. Now, we all know, it has been already said by the host as well, and the speaker before me, the right to information has taken some time to materialize as a law. I'm very happy that it's there now, and I'm also very happy that after it was passed by Parliament, the President signed it quickly into law. Now it's important to engage, educate, and empower citizens. And how do we do that? Well, now we have the good access to information. I know it's not always easy. A bill like this, right to information, requires responsibility at several levels. Requires responsibility at the level of the government, first and foremost, because the government has to get it right and get the procedures in order. And the government also needs to make sure its civil servants know how to use it. But it also requires responsibility of the public. If you allow me, in my own home country, a law like this exists, and there was just the other day in the newspaper a case of a person living close to Rotterdam who had used this right to information no less than 3.4 million times. So he lodged complaints over 3 million times. So this is clearly abuse of the right to information. It's very important that citizens know how to use it and do not abuse it as well. And then clearly and finally, it's a responsibility of civil society and journalists to use it and to try it out. Because we believe also here in the EU and as your partners, especially after this long legislation process, it is time for implementation to make it practical. And we now have to practice the right to information, discover its use and limitations, and see whether some limitations are legitimate or not. So I see now it's not up to us, but up to the Ghanaian citizens, to journalists, to civil society, and to government to practice this right to information, to implement it, and to make it a reality. So I will stop talking now. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk here, to give a little chat, and to be with you here. I stop talking, and I would like to say over to action to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter van Gelder, who is the head of political section and deputy head of Mission European Union delegation to Ghana. And that was quite a revealing revelation that he makes about one single individual's use of the RTI in his country. That is quite something to talk about. All right. Let's get back here in the studio and let's engage Honorable Ben Abdallah Banda, MP and Chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, Mrs. Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Ms. Mina Mensah, Deputy Director, Africa Office of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. Gentlemen and ladies, good morning and welcome to the 7th Dialogue.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me start with you, Mina. Hello, Mina.
To your viewers.
Great. Mina, we hear a lot of discussion about the RTI, but it does appear we don't hear a lot about the content and how important a tool it is to the fight against corruption. If you are asked the question, what is the RTI Act? What would you say it is? Act 989.
Thanks, Samson. If I'm asked that question, my response would be a law that enables citizens to activate the constitutional provision in Article 21(1)(f) to ensure that all the necessary requirements, because when you look at 21(1)(f), it says that everybody has access to information subject to certain limitations as expressed by law. So that law gives the citizenry those limitations within which they can access information, because the Constitution already has given citizens that right. So regardless of that law, everybody living in Ghana had the right to access information, just that there were certain limitations which the Constitution did not prescribe. So the RTI law is just supposed to strengthen that constitutional provision by giving people which type of limitations within which they can effectively request and access information.
Honorable Ben Abdallah, you were a part and a very important part of the passage of this bill into law. What was running through your mind as far as the law's benefit to the citizen was concerned whilst you worked on it?
Okay. Very, very good. Thank you very much for the opportunity and the question. We know that right to information is a necessary tool to the consolidation of democracy. It is without doubt that you can't run a meaningful democracy without giving the citizenry the opportunity and the right to access information. So the whole philosophy or objective was to ensure that the Right to Information Act was made as simple as possible so that persons, because there is no limitation as to nationality, and there is no limitation as to geography, and there is no limitation as to age. Anybody, whether living in Ghana or outside Ghana, can access information here in Ghana. So in order to ensure simplicity and to ensure accessibility of people to to information, we set out, first of all, to make the provisions reader friendly, and to also to ensure that even if there will be cost associated to access of information, the cost should not be exorbitant. In fact, the cost should be commensurate with the cost of getting the information to the applicant or to the requester.
Thank you. Now, let me get to Linda. And also because of where you come from, your job has been about integrity and transparency. And you presently also, aside being on the International Watchdogs board, you are also on the board of the Special Prosecutor as a chairperson. So corruption, the fight against corruption, is something that you literally live. How important is the RTI Act in the scheme of things in the fight against corruption?
Thank you very much, Samson. I must say that as a country, we have actually signed on to a number of international conventions. And the first one that comes to mind is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. When it comes to regional instruments, the African Union Convention, we are also a party to it. So obviously, we are required to actually ensure that the provisions that is required of us to have them in law, we have them. So for so many years, I think since 1992, we've had a provision in the Constitution that provides for access to information, if I'm right. I think Chapter 5, Article 21, thereabout.
21(1)(f).
Yes, 1F talks about the rights of a citizen to information.
That's right.
So then with or without a law, for so long that we struggled, people were able to access information under that particular provision in the Constitution, though very difficult. We've always wanted to deal with the subject matter of crime. And because we know it's a very important issue, we just cannot put any facts out there to be able to criminalize or punish anyone. So then we've always needed to have an act like Act 989 that provides the mechanism through which the information should be accessed. Apart from the places you've actually mentioned that I work, in my own small office, we have what we call the Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. And we actually help in the implementation of the whistleblower legislation. So we need, if people come to blow the whistle, we need to do even further investigation to get to know that the information they are providing is correct for us to start with before we actually forward the matter to any state agency for investigation. I'm telling you, Samson, without the right kind of information, we won't be able to do anything. It has always been very difficult to access information by the journalists that we work with, by the citizens that come to complain. Now that we have an act, what do we do with the act?
Right.
My former boss used to say that no matter of blessed memory, a law is nothing if it's not being implemented or applied. So for us, the right information will provide the needed the right kind of information for the citizenry to contribute to the fight against corruption that's required from them under NANACAP, and for the investigative journalists to be able to do an effective work, and even for the state agencies, if they don't get the right kind of information. Sometimes we send information to the bodies, the state agencies to work with. They say, Linda, your information you brought, it's not correct. So we have to do further work. So then we need the right kind of investigation to be able to punish the corrupt.
Right.
That's very important.
Mina, from where she, leaves us about the fact that the Constitution itself provides this right. But we know that whilst the Constitution provides that right, for a long period, people have to go to court to fight for information to be given to them. And, public officers are normally reluctant in releasing information. If I wanted to access information under the RTI Act, take me through the steps briefly. We know there's something known as proactive disclosure, and also there is that aspect where you can access by yourself. How is it done? Right, so we can't seem to have Mina. Hello, Mina. Okay, Mina's line is a bit frozen. We'll try and reestablish a good connection with her, and then we will deal with those aspects as well. Now, you know this law like the back of your palm. If I wanted, as a person, like you said, I don't have to be a citizen of Ghana to access information, what am I expected to do? And how easy is that?
Samson, this is easy in the sense that the law, that's Act 989, obligates every public institution. And the public institution is defined. Public institution is not an institution set up by the state alone. Even if that institution or organization is funded by the public funds or performs a public function within the context of the RTI Act, that private organization can be classified as a public institution.
Right. The law says public institution includes a private institution or a private organization that receives public resources or provides a public function.
Yes. So that public institution is mandated to put together a manual, and the manual must contain the classes of information that public institution generates and possesses, which information is exempt, which information is not exempt, and then the designated officer or the right to information officer who will be in charge of receiving applications, processing and determining the merits of the application, and also an information unit where information generated will be maintained, stored, and kept, and then the integrity of that information will not be diluted. Now, if a person, for instance, lives in my constituency at Ofinso, and he wants information from any public institution, because this manual is already published, so that person is presumed to know the contents of the manual. He has to decide where to locate the information, which public institution that person is looking for the information from. Is it the district assembly in my constituency? Is it information ministry? Is it communication, and so on and so forth? Having identified that public institution, then the person will then write to the public institution. Now, so by writing, it can be interpreted to mean you can also do the application electronically. You don't necessarily have to walk to that public institution and then apply or send your written request to. So that procedure is there. So who should receive the application? The law says that the request or the application requesting for the information must be addressed to the public institution. But obviously, if the public institution receives the information, it receives the application, that application will, at the end of the day, will be channeled or ferried to the information officer to deal with that application. Now, the law looks at two scenarios or two instances, because it's not everybody in Ghana here, fortunately, or outside Ghana, who can read and write. So the law takes into cognizance the fact of some who can't read and write. So the provision, or there is a provision in the act to the effect that if a person can read and write, then the information officer, it is his or her obligation to ensure that whatever that person is asking for is put into writing, and after it's been reduced into writing, then it is an obligation, because of the illiteracy situation, it is an obligation on that public officer to explain the contents of the request to that
So
person.
essentially, you don't even have to be literate to be able to access information.
That is how that is obviously the essence of the provision. And then after this application has been sent or forwarded, then the law requires the information officer to look at the merits of the request and determine within 14 days whether to grant the application or not to grant the application. Within this 14-day period, if the information officer thinks that all things being equal, that information can't be ferried or can be given to the applicant or the requester, then it is his obligation to call the information, to call the requester to come for the information. So the grant of the information can be done in a form specifically requested for by the applicant. But if the form in which the applicant wants the information cannot so be granted, then the information officer will then tell him or her the convenient form in which the information will be granted. And the forms include? And the form include reading. And you being invited just to read? Yes. Or inspect? Inspect. Or just to make a photocopy. Okay, reproduction. Reproduction. And there is this point that I have to lay emphasis on. There is a cost element in it, but the provision is to the effect that the cost should not exceed the cost that it will take that public institution to reproduce the information to the applicant. But generally, it should not come at a cost. Generally, it shouldn't come at a cost. Right. Now, Mina is back with us. Are you not? Hello?
Yes, I am. In fact, I technology and its issues. That's fine.
That's fine. Now, so I was asking, is there not an area of the law that people may have overlooked? The beginning of the law, that is in Section 2, says the government shall make available to the public general information on governance without an application from a specific person. This is what is known as proactive disclosure rather than reactive disclosure. In the situation where you make an application, if the information you seek is about the safety of an individual, it is 2 days. Otherwise, it is 14 days within which it has to be processed, and so on and so forth. Do you think that the timelines as provided under the law and the institutions as provided under the law, people will effectively access information to their satisfaction?
Thank you, Samson. You see, the default position of access to information is that information should be proactively disclosed. The fact that you have to request shouldn't be what the position is. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, public officials think that they do not owe information to the citizenry. It's like it's a favor that is being done to you, without remembering that the information that is churned out from public offices is paid from the public purse, to which all of us contribute to. So yes, the way the position is, technically, it should be proactively disclosed. So the institution should be, out of their own volition, provide as much information as possible so that there will be no need for anybody to even go and request for any information. And that in few instances where the information is not provided, then you would have to go and request. Unfortunately, because of the way our systems are structured and because of the oath of secrecy that people sign, and because of that, they use that as an example and as an excuse. You go to request for basic information, and the default position is, why do you want it? You need to prove that you're not going to use it against the state. All sorts of questions that do not really satisfy the requirements of the law. The CHRI organized some kind of information requests. We asked people to request for information. And in most of the institutions that they went to, the default position was that you need to give us an explanation, you need to go and we do not have the information, there is no information officer available, yet we are being told that people are being trained. Unfortunately, the mentality is still the same. If the citizen needs information, they need to struggle to get it out of state officials who are supposed to willingly give out information to make their services transparent. So yes, if you say that the law as structured, although based on international standards, that particular clause is not too bad, it's more to do with the human element, the implementation part of it, because there's the spirit and the letter of every law. And unfortunately, public officials are not looking at the spirit of the law. And so by default, it is extremely difficult, even with the passage of an RTI law, to get information out of people, especially when the implementation is shrouded in secrecy. There is not much information available on how it is being implemented. You hear in the news, oh, this thing has been set up, that thing has been set up, without really engaging the citizenry or civil society who are supposed to help in the implementation process. So definitely what you are saying is very true.
Now, I'll return to you to tell us what you think about the other aspect of the question I asked about the effectiveness of the institutions that have been set up by the law to ensure that people can access information without hindrance, and that all institutions that are supposed to supply information when requested are actually doing their work. But we know that when you make an application and the application, for example, is declined by the information officer, then you have a right of an internal review to the head of the institution. And then if the head of the institution also doesn't assist you, there's supposed to be a commission to assist you. How do you think that helps in this situation, and how much comfort should that structure give to people who want to request information?
Thank you very much, Samson. I always say, and I think I had a discussion with Mina even before coming for this program, that the fact that we've not started the full implementation of the Act, I sometimes want to hold back a bit discussing the challenges we are likely to face. Reason being that I don't even want to discourage people even before we start. But then this is just for education. So then the Act requires that there should be the establishment of a commission. And in case you have gone through the internal processes and you are still not satisfied, then you can go to commission for all the necessary actions to be taken by the commission. Obviously, it is very important that we have a commission of this sort, because if you try, because that's it has been our culture and our practice to hold back information, when we go into full implementation of the Act and all the institutions and structures have been set up, obviously people will hold back a bit. Secondly, there we might not have been able to have a manual of a sort that outlines all that we can. So if you come to a Ministry of Information, a ministry of any of the ministries, and you want information, for instance, if the manuals have not been developed, obviously you have to then go through the process of seeking and all those things. So then we are going to have challenges of this nature. But then once you have a commission that will be above the ministries themselves to be able to resolve some of these issues, it's a step in the right direction. As to how we set up the institution is what is of concern to us. We should have institutions that we have all the professionals that we need, people with the knowledge, well-trained, capacitated to be able to do the work that they are supposed to do. And for me, that would be the only way to ensure that even that commission itself will be effective enough to be able to resolve the challenges that the public will have when they go to them to resolve for them.
Right. Yeah. Now, Mina, the same question about the institutions and the review processes. If you can also assist us as regards the timelines within which they are supposed to work. We understand, for example, that the commission, according to the law, has the power to compel institutions that are refusing to disclose information or give access to information to do so. What else are they supposed to do, and how effective is the structure?
Something I lost a bit before you finished about it. You said something before the structure. What was it? Because I lost you. I didn't hear anything.
How exactly does the structure work if my request is declined, and how effective is that structure?
Okay, thank you, Samson. The structure is such that, like you said, when you request for information and you are declined by that agency, you do an internal process where you appeal to the head of the institution. If that doesn't work, you go to the Information Commission. Unfortunately, I would have been glad if somebody from the Ministry of Information was on this panel. Why am I saying that? This is the body that starts to implement the law. We are in the implementation stage. As much as I acknowledge that Honorable has a lot of information when it comes to the law, I think that rightly, by right, the ministry should have taken ownership and be present on this panel, because it is their baby. Civil society, we are just supporting. We don't have any locus at all. But having said that, I think that the processes are such that if the commission is not set up properly, like Linda said, if it is not empaneled properly, if the people on it do not have an understanding of what access to information is supposed to do for the citizenry, then it is going to be a problem. No matter how much is on paper that there's a commission, if the people who are going to sit on it, because as we speak, we do not have the commission set up. We have no information as to what processes the executive is going through to set up that commission. And I believe that for an access to information law, the processes that go into it should be very, very transparent. Because you see, the process is as important as the setting it up itself, as the organization itself. If the processes that you go through are transparent, you are likely to get what to be done. So on paper, the way it is structured, yes, it is good. There are processes. You go through this, you don't get it. You go through that, you don't get it. You go to the commission. That is the process. But what about the way it is being implemented? And that is what we need to have a conversation about, so that civil society, the public is involved in a very transparent manner. We can get a commission that will support the work. Also, if you are minded to, you can go to the courts. I would encourage that when there is a commission, people should rather use the commission than go to the court. So ideally, the way it's been structured, it really gives the citizenry the opportunity to really get what they want out of whichever agency that they are requesting information for.
Okay. Honorable Abdullah, by the way the law is set up, like I stated earlier, if the information is one about the safety, the health of an individual you are seeking, within 2 days, it's supposed to be processed and you get access to it. If it's any general other information, within 14 days, you're supposed to be accessing same. But there is the opportunity of an extension of the period for the information officer to work on it. That will take you to 21 days. And then the internal review, may, take you as much as 19 days. And you will discover that in the worst case scenario, extension, internal review by the head of institution, you are going to get as many as 33 days in seeking one information. How helpful is this?
Okay, let me...
and do you foresee many situations getting to that point?
Yes.
Even before it gets to the commission, and if the commission doesn't give you a satisfaction, then you go to court. Of course, the law is intended to avoid us going to court and spending money.
Yes, let me, first of all, comment a bit on Mina's point that the processes leading to the putting together of the commission, for lack of a better word, have not been transparent. But to the best of my knowledge, what I know is that some training has been organized for designated information officers, and some recruitment has also been done, and so far as I can recollect, about 100 information officers have been recruited. And
in 2019, we were told that as many as 400 plus information officers had been recruited.
Yeah, so some information officers have been recruited, and as many as designated information officers have also
What is the purpose of this recruitment when the implementing agency itself, the commission, has not been set up yet? The commission is supposed to bring up a manual that will guide all other organizations to also do their manual, like you said, and now to put out information about how to request information, give you contacts to their people who you must contact or send your information to, and so on and so forth. As we speak, as you know, people are sending requests for information to institutions, and it is private legal practitioners who represent those institutions that are representing and replying to those people. And in the end, they are going to court to fight.
No, what I know is that the Ministry of Information, which is the responsible ministry, is in touch with the Office of the President to make sure that the necessary appointments are made, making at the appropriate time the right to information function as we all expect.
You passed this law, and in a novel circumstance, you deferred its implementation by a year. We're starting the implementation in January, and we come to August, and we're still talking about working with the president to appoint the committee.
Implementation has started. Implementation has already started. And now the law has been activated. The law is being implemented. People can now apply for information. From my checks from the Ministry of Information, so far, not quite a number of people have applied. I know of about 10 people have so far applied from the records of the Ministry of Information. So I will want to use this platform to encourage persons who want to apply for information to do so, because the
evidence in the public is clear and is contrary to the suggestions you are making. Even a member of parliament, Ernest Nogwe, made an application for information to the Electoral Commission. He was denied on the basis that there's no information officer. Number two, that parliament has not set up the fees for accessing the information. It took only the court. He went to court, and the court recently compelled the Electoral Commission to give him the information, and even so, at a cost of, is it 1,000? That's too much.
That is an extreme situation. But Samson, you know, when the law is passed, you can't immediately activate the implementation without putting certain things in place. And those things, to the best of my knowledge, are now being put in place. So at an appropriate time, the full implementation of the RTI Act will be.
You had a year to put the things in place, and you have had an extra 8 months to do all of that. Linda, what do you say about the processes?
I actually want to agree with Mina that we should have had the Ministry of Information present here. And I always say that we give it to Honorable Banda and his team for passing the legislation as they are supposed to do in Parliament. So society organizations have actually committed to supporting the ministry in all its work. But then, as Mina rightly said, we have not had opportunity to have full information on exactly what is even happening. So we are talking about right information, and CSOs don't have the full information on what is happening. We had a webinar not too long ago where we had a representative of the ministry actually sharing with us. But the things that we're actually talking about, we were actually left out some way, somehow. Some society organizations that contributed to a very large extent in the passage of a law called the Right to Information Act. When it gets to setting up the structures that we need, we cannot be left out. Seriously, I feel that we had 1 full year, as Honorable has rightly said, but now the ministry should be telling Ghanaians, where are we? Should be very transparent in the processes, talking about recruitment, what procedures and mechanisms and all that we used in ensuring that we get the right kind of people to work as information officers, and also within the commission to be able to do the work the way we want it to be done. I am, to a very large extent, very disappointed to the fact that we still do not know where we are. The information we have is a bit sketchy. We don't know the full facts around what is really happening in the setting up of the structures that we need. And I think that is the best way to go. Without the structures, we will still struggle the way we've been struggling. I wouldn't go to court to go and pay those kind of monies we don't have, but we need the information to be able to do our work. Just before this meeting, I was on a webinar where we were sharing some of the results we've been able to achieve as a result of anti-corruption fight. And it took journalists to go undercover, to come and to bring up the information we need to do the work. With the Right Information Law passed, we need to get the structures working for journalists to be able to do their work with ease. That is the only way we'll be able to move our efforts in fighting corruption a bit.
Mina, what should be done going forward? All of you agree on this table, just as even the president has said over time, that this is a very important instrument in the fight against corruption. What has to be done immediately and in the long term to ensure that this is effectively achieved?
Something, I believe that when this process started, when the law was passed, the ministry had a roadmap that it developed with the contribution of civil society. And that roadmap was, as we were told in a webinar that we organized, we had a roadmap together with them. And then the ministry decided to change the content of the roadmap because of the COVID, which rightly so, because COVID brought up all kinds of issues. Unfortunately, when that roadmap was being changed, the civil society organizations that as part of implementation processes, we are supposed to engage and educate the population, because the ministry cannot do it on its own, were left out. So if we are going to be able to do this very well, the next step is for the ministry to actually open up to civil society organizations and to the citizenry, plan and carry us along. It is only when the ministry or the executive carries civil society along that we will be able to together put in the structures. Number two, we need to look at the Information Commission. If the commission is not set up, there's a problem, because you see, people are going to court because there's no commission. So that process has been truncated.
Correct.
The commission is supposed to help with implementation. The commission has not set up. What are we implementing? This means it's the executive that is implementing the way the whole thing based on the way the executive wants it implemented. And I think this is a shared responsibility. It is a process that involves everybody. When it comes to access to information, there is the part for duty bearers, and then there is the part for the society or for the populace. Honorable was saying that they received only 10 applications. Well, I know CHR has done more than 10 applications, so it cannot be 10 applications. But however it is, There's the demand side and the supply side. If the people are not educated enough in terms of the demand side, what are you supplying? Because you are supplying things based on what you feel the people need, not what the people actually need. So if this law is going to be effective, there's the need for collaboration, there's the need for transparency, there's the need for commitment in terms of funding to building the structures. You asked about structures, and Honorable kept saying that some structures have been put in place. We had a whole year. What structures have exactly been put in place? We don't know, except for the training, that tidbit of information that gets thrown around about this number of people being implemented. What exactly are the structures that have been put in place? Because in other jurisdictions, the law is implemented in stages. So instead of truncating the whole thing for one whole year, we could have started implementation in stages, which we did not. It doesn't stop us from doing that and doing it quickly and transparently so that the citizenry feel that they are part of the process and not just sitting behind and waiting. Because Honorable said at the right time. What is the right time? When is the right time? Is Ghana going to sit down and wait so government is satisfied that we have everything before it gives citizens information that by right is theirs? No. So I think that for now, what we need to do is bring all the parties together and say that we had a roadmap. This is the roadmap. As we speak, I do not think that apart from the ministry itself, the new roadmap that the ministry has done, anybody is a public thing. And it ought to be a public document so that all of us can help. So what is the new roadmap? What is the content? What are we doing first? Let us have that roadmap. Let us interrogate it. And step by step, look at the processes and implement it. But first of all, we need to look at the commission because the commission is key to the implementation. Another thing that we need to look at is the records, the putting together of information that each public institution has. That is also very key. I do not know where the various agencies are with that, but within the 1 year that we were waiting, processes could have been put in place for that. Another thing that we need to look at is the legal instrument, the LI. There is the need for that LI to be worked on. Fortunately, the coalition has proposed an LI that we are working on. We had a discussion on it. We invited the ministry. Unfortunately, they did not turn up. And sometimes it amazes me. Why? Because this is a ministry that has a minister, 2 deputies, a chief director, a technical officer. I'm sorry, but if the minister is not available and he's doing a lot of work, there are other people. Why does the whole thing have to revolve around the availability of the minister? So if that minister is not available, no meetings happen, you send letters, you don't get responses, I think that we need to start working with the institutions, strong institutions. Strong men are good. You need strong men to have strong institutions. But hey, strong men would make sure that strong institutions are available to do the work, because I find it weird, extremely weird, that a ministry that has 3 ministers, none of them, we can't have a meeting without having the minister actually there. There's a chief director, there's a technical officer. Hello, where are we going in Ghana? So as I said, the legal framework, the commission, and then bringing out what roadmap is so that together we can all input, and then we can all follow at that process.
Right. So we have about some 15 a minute or so. Now, the difficulty in accessing information from public institutions, as the NCCE's survey and interactions with the public has indicated, adds to the public perception of lack of transparency and accountability of public officials. So this must be of a priority, to you as a government. What priority would you say is being placed on the implementation of this law?
Samson, it is not every information that can be put out for public consumption. We set out to implement this law this year. Now, as I've said, some processes have begun because you can't immediately set up the right to information commission without having certain things in place. Engagement of personnel to work in the commission itself has started. I've stated it. Somebody worthy of a very respectable or knowledgeable person will have to be looked for to be the commissioner, to man the commission itself. And I believe that is being worked behind the scenes.
No, the questioning is you don't need 2 years to do that.
Samson, this Right to Information Act was in the banner for a very long time.
Yes.
We've just
the reason things about it must be fast-tracked.
Yes, we've just passed it. I know the ministry is fast-tracking things, but maybe not much information is sent out to the public for their consumption.
Sincerely, how do you justify the comment that the ministry is fast-tracking things, or the government is fast-tracking things about the implementation of an act, when an act, you deferred its implementation for almost a year, and you are in the 8th month of the year in which it's supposed to be working, and the foremost institution that is supposed to superintend the act and its implementation is not in place. You see, how do you justify this statement?
Samson, public institution. Public institutions are plenty. They go beyond the region to the districts. There must be manuals. They go beyond the region to the districts. And this takes a bit of time, a bit of thinking to put all this together. Even looking for the right person to be the commissioner, to man the commission, also involves a bit of thinking. So what I'm saying is that the government, because if the government were not minded to ensure transparency and accountability and probity in the governance system, this law wouldn't have been passed. So the assurance that I'm given is that we should just exercise a bit of patience. Because once the law has been passed, the implementation definitely, once it started, will fully take its, will take its full swing, and people who want to request for information will then have the information available to them. And the processes that we have been discussing or talking about, for instance, from the information officer to the head of the institution and to the Right to Information Commission, not all requests at the end of the day, to the best of my knowledge, will be ferried or will travel as far as to the Right to Information
That's okay.
Commission.
Let's stay a bit about your approach, as I understand. You are talking about the need to deal with districts and various public institutions scattered across the country in their thousands, and that will take time. That is correct. But if you look at that against the functions of the RTI Commission, which must come first? The RTI Commission, according to the law, is supposed to make public and widely disseminate its annual report. For example, we are getting into ending a year and it hasn't started. This report is supposed to tell the whole country about the processes and all the things it has done over the period. The manuals that the various institutions will request information from, that you are saying are scattered over the country, those manuals are supposed to be done guided by guidelines that the Commission will publish. The Commission that is not in place yet, it hasn't published the guidelines yet. How do they commence doing their own manuals, which they are supposed to disseminate to the public, within the year?
I know some template has been given. Some template has been structured by the ministry.
Given to the institutions?
Yes, and this template has been given to the institutions.
How can the ministry usurp the job of the commission?
It's not the manual. It's not the manual. Some template. Because if the commission hasn't come or hasn't started its work, are we saying that people can't begin to apply for information?
The law doesn't give the ministry the mandate to publish a guideline for the purposes of the manuals.
The ministry is not publishing guidelines.
What's the template?
And the ministry, just a standard form indicating how the various public institutions should assist requesters to apply for
information. You agree or you don't that is the mandate of the commission?
How can this one be mandate of the commission?
Can I read further the functions of the commission to you?
Okay, you read the functions, because I don't think...
Is there anywhere in this law that the ministry is giving the kind of the function that you are referring to? You won't find anything.
The ministry is the has the oversight responsibility.
Exactly.
Over this public institution.
That is so.
And in the meantime that the commission is yet to be put in place, it is the responsibility of the ministry to do this exercise in the interim before the commission is put together and begins to do its work. So I don't think that what the Ministry for Information
the law says
is violating the provision of the Act.
It is the work of the commission to provide recommendations and guidelines to public institutions for internal training of personnel and to provide training on request. You are saying people are being even recruited, and who is training them? Who is providing the basis of the training? It is the commission that must do that. That's clear in the law. The law says the commission is supposed to develop the material that it considers necessary to advance the promotion of access to information. This material, it is the job of the commission. So what do you think is going on? Linda, what do you think is going on?
You see, let me make this point. You see, the ministry is the responsible ministry. And it being a responsible ministry, having oversight over this act, what is supposed to be its work. Before even the information itself, the commission itself comes into place, it has to set certain processes in place. And these processes will include advertising for recruitment. It's not, when it does that, it's not taking over the whole function of the commission, because if the commission hasn't started its work because of one or two reasons, are we saying that governance must come to a standstill? I don't think so. If the commission hasn't started, are we saying that recruitment can't be done? The information ministry being the appropriate ministry responsible for the implementation of this act? I don't think so.
Okay, so let's find out from Linda. Can the ministry do anything that the law does not empower it to do? As far as the law is concerned, the ministry has not been given the job you are talking about. The ministry's job includes to partner with the commission to ensure that regulations are made. Okay, the regulations Mina spoke about, and also to represent the entity, as it were, in Parliament when it is dealing with its report. So what do you find what is going on? How do you find it?
I find it quite interesting in the sense that if you look at the sections of the Act, 40, 41, 42, 43, they are all outlining the responsibilities of the Commission.
Right.
So then if you are dealing with an act of this nature, and that does not give any responsibility and duties to the ministry cannot be performing that function. From where I sit, if we really were interested in ensuring that after the 1 year we get this RTI Act operative and underway, then we should have actually set up the commission. We are talking about, under Section 42, independence of a commission. So we need an independent information commission. We cannot be having discussions behind closed doors. We should be knowing the processes by now.
Right.
What process are we following to ensure that we are going to have a very independent body with the capacity and responsibility to be able to address all the functions that have been outlined for them in the commission? So far as I'm concerned, I think we should be getting back to the ministry. And the ministry should be telling us the roadmap that they shared with us some time ago that has become defunct because of COVID-19. Where are we now on so far as the implementation of RTI law is concerned in the country?
Right.
And it's very important because, Samson, we have been issuing the Corruption Perception Index for so many years now. And countries that perform very well on the CPI are countries with operative RTI legislation. In countries like Canada, Ireland, Thailand, and so many of them here, even in India, RTI legislation in Uganda are given as the result that we look for. So first, the fight against corruption is concerned. We cannot be playing with this legislation.
You heard what Van Gelder said about what one individual has done.
Yes.
What did he say was the number again?
So I've forgotten the figure, so huge.
You remember?
1 million or so.
No, more than that.
Over one, it's 3 point,
3 point something.
Yeah,
One
million,
times,
yeah.
million requests.
Yes, yes.
Do you suspect that's the fear we still have as a state, that people will invade the so-called private circumstances or operations of institutions?
That is the beauty.
If this law is in full effect.
Samson, that is the democracy we want, democracy we have, democracy we should live. Because we have actually said that we are part of open government, open transparency, open everything Ghana is signing on to. So we, at this stage of our lives where we have been lucky and fortunate enough to have an act, I am all for the voluntary disclosures. But then in case that we need special kind of information, we go for it. So for me, if even we start with the implementation of the act, we should be looking at the aspect that talks about government should ensure, under Section 2, that information is made available all time for everybody to access. But then if government had that fears, then that's quite unfortunate. We want democracy, and I'm sure there should be mechanisms in place to check those ones as well. But then
I'm going to Mina shortly, but do you appreciate the situation, Honorable, that if you say the law is actually in effect and is being implemented and people can make requests, if somebody makes a request and there's no information officer at the particular ministry, department, or agency, or a private organization which is deemed by the law as a public institution, how is the information request going to be processed? If it is declined, how is the appellate process going to happen? There's no commission. Where will they go? They'll have to go to court. Is that what it is?
Yes, Samson. You know, under Section 3 of the Act, persons who already work in the public institutions can be designated as information officers.
Okay.
You don't have to wait for people to be recruited. That's one aspect of it. And two, people obviously will be recruited and are being recruited because the officers now present and available working in the various public institutions cannot handle the volumes of information requests that will be coming. So that situation has already been taken care of by Section 3 of the Act. And now I know every public institution also has
the law has taken care of something.
Yes.
But how does it exist? I think that's what people want to know.
It exists. I know persons have been designated as information officers. It exists. You can call the ministry and find out right now. So people can apply and designated information officers.
How come a member of parliament made an application and it was a private lawyer working, doing service for the commission that was replying?
I can't speak to that because I don't know the circumstances under which that request was denied, compelling that member of parliament to go to court. But what I know, so far as the law is concerned, and so far as the information that I have got from the Minister of Information is concerned, is that some persons have been designated. So now, Samson, if you want to apply for information, you can apply. If it is rejected or declined, you can go up. Because every public
institution... You can go up where?
You can go up to the head of the institution. I know every public institution has a head. So you can travel...
The head of the institution has 7 days to deal with it for me. If he too doesn't give me a favorable, where do I go?
So
where
from
do I
there,
go?
you can
the
go
ministry?
To court. No, you can go to court.
Why should I go to court? The law was passed so that I'll go to the commission. Why should I go to court?
The point is that You know, if you remember the case of Sego Mensah versus that's the
Citizen Ghana movement. Yeah.
So the High
At the
Court,
time, the law was not in effect.
So the High Court is of the view that this act just came to give full effect to what has already been constitutionally granted by telling us the processes, telling us how, when, and where to go for information. So if the commission is absent, are we saying that if the head of the institution declines your request or refuses to review your request, you can't go to the High Court unless you wait till the commission is set up?
What is the purpose of the commission? Why did you set up the law in the first place?
Of the commission,
was it not so that as a citizen, I can have access to the information without spending money? Going to court is not an easy task.
Yes, it's not. But
you're a lawyer, you know that.
Yes, I know, but Samson, it is not all the requests that will travel to the destination of even the commission and even beyond the commission to the extent of a person going to go. Most of the requests will be so simple and straightforward that I don't think that they will have to travel so far. And you see, if you take the manual details out classes of information that are exempt and those that are not exempt. So as an information officer, if a request is brought to you, you only have to look at the application and examine the content. If it falls within the category of information that is not exempt, then you don't have any power to refuse the person's application other than granting the request of the applicant who brought
the law says that the object of the commission is to promote, monitor, protect, and enforce the right to information that is granted to a person.
Yes.
It didn't say the court does this job. It didn't say the ministry does this job. Why can't we have the commission in place?
This question, Samson, I've said that things are being worked out and the commission will be put in place as soon as possible. Samson, if you talk about a place like Uganda, when did Uganda have their right to information act in place? It's been a while. Take Kenya. Kenya had theirs when? India, several months or years ago. And so they are able to give you updates as to the number of requests that has been made because they have all the structures in place already. But ours, the implementation is just at its incipient stage. And we can't have everything together at the same time.
Let me have Mina come on briefly because we will shortly in the next 3 minutes or so go to have our closing remarks from Deputy Commissioner Mr. Ekwama Boateng. So Mina, the conversation so far as the representations made by the Mr. Abdallah Banda, what do you have to say about that? The commission, for example, is to exist so that it can compel institutions to do the things they are not doing as far as the law is required. If they also deny information, it can compel them to give you the information, among others.
Samson, interesting. I am finding this discussion a lot interesting. Why am I saying that? We are dealing with an oversight institution, Ministry of Information. We are talking about right to information. Information. The key word is information. Ministry of Information. Aren't we supposed to be informed by some of the things that are going on? Yes, the Honorable is talking about the fact that the other countries have been working for quite a while. It is true, but I do not think that the other countries waited for a very long time before they set up the institution that is supposed to help speed up the process, the Information Commission. So for me, all those things that are being talked about, they are excuses. They are not really reasons in terms of, they're just excuses because it 1 whole year, we were expecting that within the 1 year, at least the commission would have been set up. The honorable parliamentarian spoke about the fact that adverts, processes, whatever, couldn't those things have been done in the 1 year? What were they doing within that 1 year? That's the question that we need to interrogate. Linda talked about going back to the roadmap, which is very important. The ministry's name is Ministry of Information.
Okay.
Ministry of Information, please give us information so that we all can support the processes to ensure that this law works and it doesn't become one of those laws that we pass.
Thank you. In a minute, Linda, this is a journalism teacher. He says that I gave my media law and ethics class an assignment to make RTI requests to public institutions of their choice for us to test it. An overwhelming number of institutions had no clue what to do, who to deal with the request.
The education is not out there. And if you don't take care, to become like the challenges we've had with the whistleblower legislation that came into effect in the year 2006. People just do not know.
Okay.
So then we have to empower them with a lot of public education, sensitization and awareness program ongoing.
Okay.
And then we need a commission also to
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Samuel Asari Ekwema, Deputy Chairman Operations, the NCCE. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Samson, and well done to our panelists. For me, the good thing coming out of this discussion is that implementation of the RTI has started. Whether it's transitional or not, it has started. And a journey of 1,000 miles, we all agree, begins with a step. Maybe the gaps on the implementation are the one we need to look at critically if we want to succeed. And listening to our panelists, I can see, for instance, the establishment of the commission, which will sort of give a kind of some control and confidence to all the applicants, stopping the rush to court, which may be unnecessary, time-consuming, resource-consuming. So maybe that is one issue that going forward implementation should tackle. The next I also see is a manual, and I believe once the commission is established, the bet will be given to the manual, which will also clarify how to deal with the implementation from the information officers and even the applicants. I think our honorable member of parliament has also stood so strong, and I need to thank him profusely. Regarding the frustration coming from especially MENA, I would say that we should not give up. Civil society, I remember in the mid to late 90s, started this fight. In the end, the battle appears to have been won. So we now have a law. I think the other gap we need to look at critically is public education and engagement, and the opening up of the doors of the institution that has the oversight, because there has been a lot of expression of, not opening up. Maybe we need to appeal to the ministry. I know they have a very dynamic minister who is listening. And we are all going to have that so that public education and engagement will also thrive.
All right.
To ensure that God will have a very...
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Samuel Asari Ekwema is a Deputy Chairperson, Operations of the NCCE. Our guest for this 7th dialogue by the NCCE have been Honorable Ben Abdallah Banda, who is MP and Chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, Mrs. Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Ms. Mina Mensah, Director, Africa Office of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. I have been your host, as always, Samson Ladi Anyanini. Have a good afternoon, and thank you all.